What do you do when your worst nightmare steps out from the shadows and becomes your reality? Not in some distant, abstract way, but right there, in front of you. When the thing you've spent years dreading, bargaining with, and praying against suddenly arrives and there's no going back? Fear is one thing in theory. It sits beside you, whispers in the dark, keeps you up at night. But when it finally happens, when it explodes into your real, everyday life, it's a different kind of devastation. There's no buffer. There's no distance. It's immediate, suffocating, and irrevocable. Let me tell you about Mary Cosby, a woman many know from the dazzling world of the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. She's the kind of person who owns every space she enters. Her confidence is unmistakable, her presence hard to ignore. She is a pastor, a businesswoman, a reality TV star, a woman accustomed to both public adoration and criticism. Yet, when you strip away the camera angles, the designer clothes, the personas built for television, you're left with something raw and universal. A mother struggling to keep her only son alive. On national television, Mary once said, "I'd rather him be there in jail than dead." That wasn't just a soundbite. It was the truest thing she could muster. The gratitude of a mother who, after years of sleepless nights and frantic prayers, at least knew where her son was. There's a certain relief, an awful kind of comfort, in knowing your child is locked away, because the alternative is unthinkable. At least in jail, you can count on tomorrow. You know he's out of harm's way, if only for a while. You don't have to worry that he'll disappear without warning, that the next phone call will be the worst of your life. But even those small assurances can be shattered. Just weeks after Mary spoke those words, her son Robert Cosby Jr. was gone. Robert Jr. died on February 23rd in Utah. He was just 23 years old. The police came after a call about a possible overdose, but by the time they arrived, it was already too late. It was no longer a rescue, but a confirmation. They haven't released the official cause, but the ache of his absence is not something that needs to be explained. It's the kind of loss that shakes your foundations, that makes the world feel unrecognizable. If you've watched the show, you might remember a moment from season 5, a conversation that was so real, it transcended television. Cameras rolling, Robert Jr. sat across from his mother and laid bare the truth. He told her about the first time he tried Xanax, just 16 and at a party, one small decision that would ripple out into chaos. After that came Adderall, OxyContin. He described taking handfuls of pills, chasing a feeling that kept slipping further away. Then heroin entered the picture, another desperate attempt to fill an emptiness he couldn't name. Imagine being that mother, sitting across from your child, the one you cherished, the one you'd prayed for, the one whose very existence was once your greatest joy, and hearing this confession. All those years you spent nurturing hope, celebrating milestones, believing in a bright future, and now you're faced with a truth that undoes everything you thought you knew. You wonder how it happened under your roof, under your watch, with all your love and vigilance. How did it come to this? Then Robert said the words that haunt every parent. "I felt like a stain. I just felt like this world wasn't for me." He admitted he'd thought about ending his life. And then, "You're the only reason I didn't kill myself." Those words are heavier than any mother should ever have to carry. They linger and echo, changing the way you see the world and yourself. They force you to confront the limits of your love, the helplessness that comes with watching someone you adore slip further and further away. Mary broke down, as any mother would. She wept for her son, for herself, for the dreams that were slipping through her fingers. Later, she confided to the cameras that she blamed herself. She scoured her memory for moments she might have missed, signs she should have seen, decisions she could have made differently. "If I don't blame myself, whose fault is it?" she asked. That question is a refrain for so many parents whose children struggle with addiction or mental illness. Guilt becomes a shadow that follows you everywhere, no matter your strength or status. After that conversation, Robert entered rehab, a glimmer of hope in an otherwise dark landscape. Mary spoke about it publicly, her voice trembling with cautious optimism. For a moment, it seemed like things might turn around. There was relief in her words, a hopefulness that maybe, this time, things would be different. But addiction is not a straight path. It is a labyrinth, full of false exits and cruel turns. Just when you think you found your way out, you realize you're deeper in than ever. By November, Robert had been arrested. He pleaded guilty to assault and property damage. He was held without bail, awaiting sentencing, tucked away in Salt Lake County Jail. The irony was brutal. After everything, jail felt safer than the world outside. During the Real Housewives reunion, Mary spoke openly about finding a strange kind of peace. She was grateful to know where her son was, grateful he was somewhere he couldn't use. It's a testament to how addiction reshapes your understanding of safety and comfort. Most mothers would never wish for their child to be behind bars, but when the alternative is death, you start to see the world differently. You learn to accept small mercies, even when they come wrapped in barbed wire. On February 7th, Mary posted a picture. It looked as if Robert had been released. Maybe, for a moment, she allowed herself to hope again. Maybe she believed they had been granted another chance. By February 23rd, that hope was gone. Her son was gone. This story is so much bigger than a headline, so much more than a subplot in the world of reality TV. It's about a family, two parents who waited years for a child, who nurtured him, celebrated him, believed in him with all their hearts. It's about the agony of watching someone you love be consumed by something that love alone can't conquer. It's about the limits of faith, the inadequacy of money, the exhaustion of hope. It's about fighting as hard as you can and still losing. Mary's statement on Instagram was simple, but spoke volumes. Our beloved son Robert Jr. has been called home to the Lord. Though our hearts ache, we take comfort in God's promise and in knowing He's finally at peace. Finally at peace. Those words echo with a bittersweet finality. They ask us to consider what it means to find comfort, not in recovery or redemption, but in release. What does it take for a mother to accept that the only way left to love her child is to let him go? How do you live with that day after day? This loss is a reminder of the relentless grip of addiction, the fragility of hope, and the depth of a parent's love. It's a call for empathy, for all the families living this nightmare in silence, for every parent who has fought and lost, and for those still battling alongside their children. It challenges us to see beyond the headlines, to recognize the humanity and heartbreak behind every statistic. In the end, Mary's story is not just about grief, but about endurance, the kind that keeps loving, hoping, and remembering, even when the worst has already happened.